Welcome to Draw Process. I'm Ike. This is where I draw pages of my comic and process about the techniques I'm using and my development as an artist. It's page 53 of episode 2 today of my comic, First Sun and Sword. Okay, this is an odd-numbered page, so it is going to be on the right-hand side once it's printed. I have that in mind. And you'll notice that I just made some pencil marks. I'm marking out the 1/4 of the width, the third, and the half, all the way across the top and bottom. And I'm making the safe area, the area where the panel borders will be if there's not a full bleed panel, and all of the word balloons and important information will be within that box that I drew. I'm coming right in, drawing what I'm thinking. There's crossbowmen that are reacting to seeing they're on the roof, and we just saw them in the last panel on the last page where the big lizard man Kurok has tossed a few aside on one side of the alleyway on one roof, and he's seems to be running. He's heading towards the guys on the other side of the roof, and I'm trying to capture, okay, do we start with their reaction, them getting their crossbows ready? What do we do? And I'm thinking about the story because I have not storyboarded or roughed this story. I wrote the basic, most important beats, but as I've said on here, I'm writing it as I'm going quite a bit. And that has led to a decision when it comes to, well, right after this page, I started roughing out the rest of the book. And I think I'm going to do that for the next book so that I can write in the form of roughs. Before I was trying to write in the form of a script, but I can't capture it quite right for me unless I storyboard it, is what I believe I'm finding. So what we have here is the first panel is Kurok from a worm's eye view, looking up at him. From the people in the alley's view, him leaping across the gap between the two roofs, and the three crossbows just barely seen over the edge of it. And then we have Farah in the foreground there in the second panel with Sun behind her to the right, noticing that Kurok's there. And then two small quarter-width panels there on the second tier here. We have the men launching arrows, the arrows up in midair, and Kurok is, such a beastly character. He doesn't even mind getting shot with these bolts. So he puts his hands up to block his vitals, but he doesn't mind taking them into the soft tissues here. And then we're going to have a reaction shot of Pompado and his men, and then the conclusion of the action with Kurok the lizard man. He's leapt down onto the other side of the roof, and there's a man's skull in each of his hands, and the man in the middle is in his jaws. Very efficient, very powerful looking pose and position he ended up in. So we have a final ending there for what's happening with the lizard man. And we have an ending here for this page of what's going on with Farah. So we had Farah's reaction, Pompado and his men, whom she's facing off with right now, their reaction, and then what she does about the situation. It was intentional that I set this up kind of in a grid in a way. All the panels on the left half of the page involve Kurok and the men on the roof, and all the panels on the right are Farah, Sun, and Pompado. I thought that made a nice visual, just to have one part of the story on the left, one on the right, going straight down the page. Lots of little actions and reactions I want to capture, and I don't want to stretch that out over a lot of pages. I'm doing a lot of smaller panels. I need the images to read easily and quickly. So you have to be able to quickly grasp what the image is conveying and not get bogged down in it, because I want it to move quickly. Some of that is in the structure of this page. It's very, very, very linear and quick. And at this point, I've got a really rough version of the page done, and that's what I'm going to start doing for the whole comic, I think. I at least am going to do it for the rest of this comic. But going into the future, this is my new idea that I will try. I got to keep it really rough and still on the Bristol board. So in the past, I would draw a comic. I would do, thumbnails on smaller paper, and then I would draw them again on the board. And I could never capture it. I would always want to change it on the board. It just doesn't look the same as what I thought it would do on the thumbnail. I have a new idea, something different or better. So my idea is that I'm going to do all of my roughs, my thumbnails, my storyboards. I'm going to continue to do them on the full-size 11x17 Bristol board. But I'm going to do them all at once. Instead of one every week as I do the page, I'm going to do all of them and work out the story, and then I can easily go back and make changes because I'm not spending very long on each page. That requires some restraint. I have to make sure that I don't spend too much time, because that's the main idea, is this is larger paper and it's tempting to spend too much time working out details when it's so big. I could see someone drawing the entire page on a smaller paper as their roughs and then blowing it up, printing it out on an 11x17 in order to ink on that, or even pencil and then ink. But that's added work too. And in the past, I think I was used to drawing smaller because I was used to small paper, but now I'm very used to drawing on Bristol board. This feels natural. And I'm able to capture ideas and see if they're working. I can experiment more and test my experiments more on the large paper. And so that's how I'm approaching it for now. My new way of doing it. You'll see that how I'm building on top of the roughs here, building, more detail and structure. This page, it went pretty smoothly. I was pretty happy with it. The one before this, I believe, was more challenging if I remember correctly. So sometimes it goes easier for me. Sometimes I struggle a bit. I continue to struggle with, it's the year just turned to 2025, and I continue to struggle with wanting to complete the stories in a faster way. And getting more time to do it is not realistic for me right now. Maybe a little bit, actually. There's a few changes to my schedule this year, but not majorly. I need to change the way I'm doing it. I want to feel like I'm working on the finished product when I sit down to work, and not just a piece of it. I want it to move faster. If I think the comics need to look more like my rough pencils here. I'm doing this loosely, quickly, capturing the story enough that you understand it, and then let's move on. Let's keep the story going. And that's good enough. And so the limitations I'm stuck with in terms of, time that I have available, and energy, and also, the limitations that are self-imposed, in a sense, my drive to do finished books, the deadlines I give myself, the desire to have another book ready at the next convention I go to so that people can, get the second issue. It limits me, it frustrates me, but it's the friction. It's the friction we need to do something, to accomplish something in a creative way, the friction, the challenge can be useful. The creative solutions, the particular solutions that you find to that will become a part of your style, a part of your practice, a part of the books you finish, the art itself. And I'm really embracing that. I'm trying to really accept, the reality of my situation, of my skill, and how my art's going to look if it's authentically in my voice, let's say, and fully honest with the amount of time I have to do it, and what it is that I'm about, what's important to me, which is speed, which is getting the story out there, and it's fun to just express through and making it up on the page, as you see with this pencil phase. This feels really good. Sometimes refining it beyond this doesn't. It's somehow missing the mark. Hitting that wall, almost like a burnout. I've talked about that before in these videos, but hitting it harder over the last several weeks, or even the last few months, than I did before that. And I know it's good for me. It's turning out very good. But it's rough. Like, I actually, question if, can I keep doing this? Should I keep making comics? And I'm going to, don't get me wrong, but I have that thought. Like, I can't keep doing this when it is hard, when it is slow. And that struggle is helping me let go. It's helping me let go of my pride. Maybe I had an idea of what I wanted my art to look like, what kind of a comic artist I wanted to be, and where I wanted to fall in the spectrum, in the annals of history. And I have to let it go. I'm really letting that go now. No, I'm just going to have the voice that I have. Draw it how I draw it. And that can be good. It's going to be good. I think I enjoy seeing that in artists when I can tell there's that sort of letting go of the pride and just doing it. So I think it can be good, and it seems likely to me that it would be, but it's not good in the way I had planned. It's going to be different. I feel like life keeps teaching me the same lesson, like that I need to let go and just do it. And I think I'm ready. I really hope so. And hopefully this isn't just a bunch of hot air. We'll see. As the year progresses, we will see. If I really am doing things differently, if I really am letting go, and you'll see it in how I draw. Am I really going to be an awakened one? I'm drawing within my own personal matrix. Can I be Neo in it? I hope so. But I feel like I sure hope so, because I don't know how much more I need to suffer before I or stew on it, or mature, or age, before I will just give in and give up on the pride. We'll see. If that doesn't make sense to you, what I'm talking about is, in a concrete sense, you're going to see that I'm doing very messy roughs on the Bristol board, and that I'm writing the story and editing and changing it as I go right onto the Bristol board. That's my thumbnails. And that's also my story. That's how I'm going to write. And that's how I'm going to do character design and environment design, is right there on the page. I might grab a scrap sheet of paper on the side, but probably not. I'm going to make it up on the page. If I need reference, I'll just look it up and then draw it. But most of it's going to come from imagination, even more than it has. And the pencils are going to be very loose, and I'm going to come in with these inks like I'm doing here. And this seems like a pretty good example. These pencils are rather messy and loose, and I've got to make a lot of decisions in the inks. But I'm probably going to push this even further to doing a lot more of this in the inks, even less in the pencils. And my panel borders are probably going to get looser. Like they're not going to be all at right angles. They're going to be at whatever angle feels it's probably going to be more organic, and whatever feels like it's helping for the flow better. Instead of following the rules strictly. The story will probably be affected by that. It's going to be, I guess the pacing should be stronger, because it's literally all pacing. I'm going to be writing it in drawing form. So we're probably going to have a much better pacing. And there's probably going to be more goofy or funny or odd moments, things that just make me happy to do. And I think I learned a lot of this in this issue more than the last. I call them episodes because they're quite long, but they're not really like a trade paperback or even a graphic novel, that when they might range from the 60 to 90 pages, it seems. And this would be episode 2, volume 2, if you will. And in the first volume, I was starting out trying to go very quickly with very simple lines and heavy black and white. You can see that in the videos. But with this, when I look back at this episode, this volume versus the first one, there's a lot more energy. I'm more erratic. I'm more loose and scribbly, getting lots of ideas down. There's a lot more ideas down. Before, it would be, the idea of this panel is, I don't know, a close-up on sword, and then boom, it's just that. But here, there's so many more ideas, and like in terms of camera angles and expressions and poses, everything is conveying a lot more. And let's just call it more content, more ideas. So like exponentially more than there was in the first issue. That, to me, that's got to be a good thing, because I don't think it's slower. It's not a much slower read. The pacing seems fine too, so it's not bogged down by this added information. Thanks to being visual information, it does go quickly, in comparison to written. And I learned about writing, not having a finished script, but letting it breathe as I storyboard and draw out the pages. And I've learned how to ink from looser pencils, and doing it with the nib now, which allows for a lot more organic and energy than the Micron did. yeah, I think everything's been leading up to this. Yeah, and like I'm saying about this next step for me, what's the next thing I learn? Well, I have to look back at what I've learned so far, and think, okay, well, what seems to be next, and also what was I fighting against? What was I learning that I fought against? Well, in this issue, I was fighting against getting looser and faster. There was a series of pages where I switched to the nib, but I'm trying to keep it much more. I'm more careful with the composition and the blacks and whites and poses, and then I've been struggling with, as I get really loose on here, some of these pages. Yeah, I've thought, well, this is the direction I want to go. I don't know if I should go too far that way. So there's ways I was fighting against myself. And so, yeah, what would I still be fighting against? I can look back to inform and guess my future here. Yeah, that's a big part of this series, of the idea of this series that I'm doing, is I get to think about what I'm doing. I get to look back at it and process it. And someone else, not only might you learn, be intrigued by this, what process I have, or learn some techniques about perspective or whatever by watching what I do, but you will also get to hear how someone else processes what they're doing. And so that it helps you do that. How do you think about what you're doing? And it's always interesting to hear how someone else is thinking. To me it is. Yeah, it's going to be great to see. But this year, it's going to be interesting. Things will be different. I'll try to stick to one video per week, and just I will probably take those storyboards I'm doing on the Bristol board, those preliminary rough pencils, whatever you want to call it. I will probably take those and break them up into the videos to maintain this video structure. But at some point, I'm thinking after this issue is over, I'll probably change the video structure as well. We wouldn't do one page every week because I'm not going to be doing a page every week. There's going to be a week of doing roughs and then weeks of doing the finished inks. Yeah. By not knowing where the lines are going to go, the inking process does take a little longer. But the finished result is definitely, it's got some life. It's more organic. It's definitely messy too. But it's got some life to it the way my pencils do. It looks more like it was drawn by someone, cartooned. Yeah, it takes a little longer, but the pencils take less time, because I can trust myself to figure it out in the inks. And there's times here where I may place a line and think that's where their leg is, and I go, nah, let's make that thicker, and I just throw an extra line on and turn that other one into something else. And if I need to, I can use whiteout. I also see that my backgrounds and perspective is getting much more confident than it used to be. I've had to do so many backgrounds in this issue, this episode specifically, that I'm just getting more comfortable with it. But I'm noticing a change that's happening, and I think it comes from the confidence. I'm allowing space to warp some, kind of like how a wide-angle lens, a fisheye lens, warps space. It's not a flat grid. I'm doing that too. I'm not as worried about it being perfectly, accurate, going to a vanishing point accurately. I'm letting things bend and kind of stretch in certain spots just to like capture the energy. Like here, the lizard man is holding down these three guys, and everything about the background and the angles of the background, the perspective on it, is dictated by the image as a whole. The figures are positioned in a particular way, like to convey, the energy and angle of things, the dynamics of it, and then the background just hops in and just kind of follows suit. Yeah, it's very loose, and I used to worry more about the size of figures in comparison to each other, figures in the foreground versus background, and then the background and the size of that. Is it maintaining accurate proportions to other things? And now it's much more loose. It's more of a gesture. It's the idea of these backgrounds that I'm just conveying, and not as worried about the accuracy on it. But again, it leads to a more flowing, organic, and like harmonious composition when I can just do it. And I see comics where people are more rigid with it, or animation or something, and it doesn't suit my tastes as much these days. I much prefer the organic backgrounds, and they seem to be happening less and less these days. I don't know. Maybe part of that is because of digital tools. It's so easy to use, a perspective grid or something, or reference. Yeah. There's the confidence. I'm putting a lot of trust in myself to be able to pull off an image that will work from pretty loose pencils and not so perfect perspective and figures and so on. I think this is going to get easier too, because now that I'm doing roughs first, and now that I'm doing roughs before, like I finish a page and then I'll just do the whole book's roughs, it has me even more so in a roughs, thinking. Like I'm trying to capture the gesture, the dynamics. And then when I come back and pencil or ink on top of that to finish it, I think I'm capturing the dynamics better. I think I'm seeing that in the pages that I've roughed out so far, which is maybe the next 8 so far. I can tell that the clear dynamics and the clear intention of what I'm trying to say with the flow, for example, it's more clear because I've left it so rough that it's clear. And then I can just flesh that out and try to keep that base dynamics down, the base idea, be strong. So in the story here, Farah has looked up. She knows that the lizard man's here. We don't know if she really knows Kurok or not. I'm sure she does, with their connections, with what their line of work is. But she may not know if this is him. But she's wasting no time. She's the first to act. I'm not using a lot of word balloons to convey, or any narration to convey the meaning of things. So, I enjoy anime, for example, and you'll have people like thinking out loud. You'll hear their thoughts as they're working out the details of their fight. They're in a fight, but it adds richness when you know what someone is thinking. When there's that warping of time that lets you hear what they're thinking. And if you don't use any words to do that, it is much harder to communicate what people are thinking, and have it be meaningful. So, and to communicate like story, what's important, what seems to convey values of like, why does one person succeed and one fail? And how is someone overcoming obstacles? How do you convey that without words? And here, she is the first person to react, and she's taking quick action, even though there's all these crossbows pointed at her. There's a small possible opportunity here, and she's immediately acting on it. So she's going to shove the cart towards Pompadour. Sword hasn't jumped out yet. He's going to jump out of the cart, and that'll be helpful to her and Sun. Well, he'll jump up from within the cart. He still isn't strong, and his foot's not good, so he's not going to literally jump out. And they will succeed after they act first. So this is something I'm working out as I draw the pages. I'm working out precisely how they get out of a tough situation I've put them in already. It isn't all fully written ahead of time. But it's actually been interesting because I write them into a corner. I write them literally into a corner, cornered by these opponents. What are they going to do? And I've got to find a way for them to get out of it. And so it really keeps me on my toes. It keeps me thinking as I draw it out. I don't know, but I think that if I try to, as long as I keep trying to bring it to life and I think of these as real characters, really having to make hard decisions, I can kind of let the story guide me. I can let the characters guide me on what should happen next. There's limitations on that because this is episodic, this is ongoing, so they're not going to die this issue. I need these characters to be somewhat the same at the end. The whiteout opaque paint, I'm coming in and just making minor changes. They're not necessary at all, but it's so easy to use the pen that I just come in and do a few things to make things a little more clear, such as an outline on a figure that maybe another line broke their outline on accident, went a little too far. I can come in and white that out. Any of the lines that are going outside of the panel borders, I just erase them digitally. I cover them up. And there is the finished page, the first of the year, with the finished colors. I wonder how I'm going to approach colors on the next issue. This has been maybe more detailed than I would like, but I definitely like the effect. The using the shadow and light layer along with the flat colors has been effective. It just takes more time. That's it. You can clearly see this division now of the left and right hand sides of this page because the colors really help do that. Because there's a lot more of the sky and it's all in a well-lit area, you've got different colors. And of course, with the lizard man being so blue-green, you've got very different colors on one side than the other. Definitely separates these two that run down the page. Of course, you're meant to read it like a normal page. You know, you just go left to right and then down to the next tier, left to right. But your mind will see that composition of this A and B thing happening, and you'll jump back and forth between them. Pretty simple, I think. I probably won't continue that beyond one page because then it gets complicated. Will you lose the reader if you're trying to maintain something like that? But yeah, this one was fun. I like this page. And then the next page will be the first one that's part of this last chunk where I've done the roughs, all the roughs first, and then I'll, finish them up. See you next week.